Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, Ingo. Thank you for inviting me. And I am Lydia Roy, and I'm an executive coach. I'm a business coach. I work with business owners as well as with other coaches to help them to uh, learn how to be a coach, to grow their business as a coach, and to be better coaches. And I just want to say, um, one thing that I've learned, I found that many people are quite interested in how to be a coach or how to be more coach-like in their lives. And it's interesting because this being a coach has really two parts, and there's a being part and there's a coach part where you actually learn how to do it. But in order to learn how to do a coach, you need to be a coach. So I want to talk more about that. But Ingo was mentioning that I'm one of few people in the world actually that have a designation. Ingo just cited back to me before we started that one of 5,000 people in the world who actually have, a master certified coach. And I want to say that, what does that mean? Well, when Ingo and I spoke briefly before we started, I said, well, it certainly means a lot of coaching hours for sure. Just to be even considered for that level, you need to have a minimum of 2,500 hours. That means of working with clients and teams. And and I've gotten that designation some time ago, so it's probably more than over 10,000 hours of coaching. So that's a lot of talking, a lot of speaking. And what I want to say is I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do this work, number one, and number two, to make a difference in other people's lives and in the world. So Ingo, thank you again for asking me to come here today. What I wanted to do was share with you just a little bit about what coaching is. I've got just a few slides. And then what I'd really like to do is to give you an opportunity to actually do a little bit of coaching before you leave the call today. So we're going to look at two skills that are just absolutely critical to being an effective coach. And I'm just going to raise up my slides now and just give you just a brief introduction. You may already be fully aware of what it means to be a coach, but I just wanted to share my slides with you. Okay. The topic for today is Coaching 101, learn how to have more coach-like conversations. So I would like to say that by the end of today, by the end of this session, not by the end of today, but by this session, that you'll have the opportunity to have at least one coach-like conversation. And I smile at the title slide here because it says Coaching 101. I found that there's no 101 in coaching. It's an ongoing learning process. It doesn't matter how often and how many people you've coached. As a really effective coach, one of the things you learn is that you always need to be coaching and you always need to be growing as a coach and getting feedback on your coaching. One of the things that I want to share with you is, oops, there we go. A little bit about what is coaching. I would love to say it's a lovely social conversation. That's part of it, but not really. It really is about making change happen. When people come to coaching, they come for something, and usually it's to make a change. Usually it is to, achieve a goal, or it's to improve a relationship. There are a variety of different reasons, but it's always about change. It's always about, I'm here today and I would like to be here. And so the coach walks beside and helps to make that change happen. And the other piece that I really appreciate about coaching is it is movement. There's always movement in coaching, from where you are to where you want to go. And what are the steps that get you to that goal, to that new opportunity, to regrowing the business, to even moving out of the current state that we're all in right now. So how do I, once we move into the right stage of being able to move out more freely, how do I go about with my business? What are the changes that have happened, and what do I need to do? So a lot of the coaching will absolutely be around that as well. So it is about facilitating change and facilitating change towards whatever your client desires. I brought a model from, as Ingo mentioned, I am the dean at the Adler Graduate School of Coaching and Psychology. And here's one of the core models that we use as a way to explain what coaching is, because the truth is, if you've not had a coach or you don't know really what it is, it sounds pretty exciting and interesting, but what is it really? So I just want to share the Adler coaching model just for a moment, just to give you a little bit of context. And, why do people come to coaching? If you look at the outer triangle, usually they're for three reasons. One is performance. I want to change something in how I do things. There's something in my performance. It could be work related. It could not be work related. And maybe it's got to do with, something related to a relationship that you're in. I want to be different. I want to grow differently. But the truth is, I want to change something in who I am and who I'm being. So the performance piece. Usually, again, on the other side of the triangle, there's some learning. Coaching agenda is fundamentally about change. But in order to make change, well, first of all, you have to want to have the change. But second of all, you've got to open up to awareness, like to new learning. What is it that I need to know in order to make the change that I want to make, in order to grow in this certain way? What do I need to learn? So there's usually learning on the agenda. And my favorite piece of this is the fulfillment piece, which is really the foundation. At the end of the day, most people want some better satisfaction in their life, some significant change, or something that's better for me, more aligned with who I am as a person. So that fulfillment piece, it can be a separate agenda in and of itself, but often it's connected. I want to change something in my performance. I want to learn something different. And I want to feel better. I want to have that, inner satisfaction, that inner, I feel that my inner self is aligned with my outer self, that fulfillment. So as a coach, I already mentioned, so where do I work with you? Like, if you come to me and we're going to decide on what the goals of your coaching are, where do I go? Well, the very first thing I go to is that place of awareness, which is in the middle, that tiny triangle of awareness, choice, and trust in self. First of all, I've got to understand, so what are you aware of? What are you aware of right now? What is causing you to want to make a shift or a change, or to expand your business, or to change your relationship? So we're working on the awareness piece first. And once the awareness expands, and literally there has to be an opening, because if there's no awareness, there's no difference in choices that you're making. And if you don't change the choices you're making, then there's not going to be the trust in self, and there's not going to be a change. So everything starts with, what is this important to me? What do I want to have different? And opening that awareness to new choices, you'll see along the other side of the triangle. And finally, one of the most challenging parts is, I might be fully aware of what I want. I'm very excited to go there. And I'm starting to make different choices, different relationship, maybe following different business opportunities. I'm making all these different choices, but am I nervous? Because, as you know, that darn brain of ours, and many of you have seen Dan Siegel's Brain and Hand, and I've got my fist out if you can see me at all. But he actually talked about the brain and the prefrontal cortex, and I've just just tuck my thumb underneath. You've all seen this before. And, when you're asking me to make a change, when you're asking me to go into a chaotic, ambiguous place, and we've all been there over these past 8 weeks, guess what gets activated? That amygdala starts to open up, and no longer, and our blood moves away from that beautiful prefrontal cortex, the place, the reasoning place, the place of higher problem solving capacity, the ability where wisdom comes from. All of a sudden, when we are activated, when we're frightened, when we're not sure, and that's that trust in self, then all of a sudden, I'm not going to move forward on the change I want. So it's about me working with you on that as well, about supporting you as you take one step and then another step and then another step and then 2 steps back and 1 step forward. That's part of the process of change, as you're well aware of. And then finally, I just wanted to share the final piece of this, which is what do I do as a coach? What do you do as a coach? I'm sure I have coaches on this call right now. Number one priority is, well, I got to build a relationship with you. We have to trust each other. We have to want to work together. We have to feel that sense of chemistry, right? That sense of chemistry. I've had chemistry meetings over the past few weeks with different people who want to coach with me. And what is that? That's about, can we work together? Do I get a sense I can work with you? So that relationship. And then I build a process with you or with your team, because not every single coaching engagement will be the same. In fact, they never are. So what's the process that's going to work for you? And then the other piece is, how are we going to engage in conversation in order to move you towards your goal? So I just wanted to share that because I believe it's a good essence of why people come to coaching, what the coach actually does, and what you do if you've come to coaching as well, in terms of awareness, choice, and trust in self. So I'll take a breath, and I'll invite you to take a breath. Just take 1 deep breath and hold it for 3, and then slowly, as if blowing out of a straw, just relax, and then 1 more deep breath and hold it, and blowing out slowly for 6. I call this take 6. Usually I do 6 of these because sometimes when there's a lot of information coming forward or something new that's happening, we're losing that beautiful prefrontal cortex, and that amygdala might be activated. So I'm trying to kind of bring back that kind of inner place and inner wisdom. And I really invite you to use that take 6 strategy at any time, as I'm sure you have over this period of time. Okay, what do coaches actually do? Just a couple of quotes. James Flaherty, Ventures West, a longtime coach. Many of you might know of him. I really liked his quotes. Coaching is not telling people what to do. That's one of the biggest learnings, is that I may have expertise in different areas, but my job is really not to tell you what to do. It's giving people a choice to examine what, I'm sorry, I can't read the rest of that quote, but to examine what they want, to examine what they want in the light of their intentions. And then also, he says, it's also dangerous for coaches to imagine that the use of any technique, however powerful, will allow them to escape from engaging fully with the client. So coaches, we need to engage with you fully. We engage with you. We are with you. And I'm going to use that word being. We have to engage because there may be vulnerable times, because we're asking you to make changes in places that are uncomfortable, that may negate your trust in self, right? So interestingly enough, we are not the tellers and the experts. We are the ones that help you to tap into your expertise. And then, bottom line, what do coaches actually do? This is one of the bodies that certify coaches and coaching schools, which is the International Coach Federation, which is a global organization. And interestingly enough, one of my favorite things to do when I am teaching coaches to be coaches is to read this quote. Ingo, would you do me a favor? Could you read this? What do coaches really do?
Sure. I hope you can hear me. So what do coaches really do? Coaching defined by the International Coaching Federation. They discover, clarify, and align with what the client wants to achieve. They encourage client self-discovery. They elicit client-generated solutions. They hold the client as responsible and accountable.
Thank you. Thank you. So I don't know if others have an unmute capacity, but I'm just curious. The question I'm asking right now is, what do you notice about this definition? Like, what is the thing that's glaring out at you when you see this definition, when you heard Ingo speak it just now? What's glaring for you? Anyone? And guess who's accountable for the results? Who is accountable for the results from the coaching? I know it's a leading question, but someone tell me, who is accountable at the end of the day?
The client.
You got it. You got it. And this is the toughest learning of all. Whether you're an existing professional long-term coach or just starting out, it's one of the challenges, the need to really support your client to get to their own solutions, to support your client to figure out what in all of this matters to them, and to get them to be accountable to move things forward. Because as the coach, you might have seen the scenario or their particular issue or the team and what's going on with the team many times, right? But how you're going to create the impact is if you can go inside and allow the individual or the team members to figure out their own solutions. They'll be more committed to it and it'll be much more sustainable. So it's a whole different way of being. It's a whole different way of being, and it invites vulnerability from your clients as well, because it's actually the clients who actually move themselves forward. Okay, toughest learning of all for those coaches that are out there. I'm sure you'll agree with me, right? So what's possible when you have a coach? I want to share with you, and I know you see the screen there. Certainly achievement of goals, certainly moving forward. The reason people come to coaching is because we're stuck. We can't seem to get to where we want to go. So that support is a way to create that movement that I talked about earlier. And you could be wanting to resolve relationship challenges, or it could be a different new future. Primarily, the big center of the work that we do is, how can I help you to be the best person that you can be, coming from your strengths, from your values, from you at your best. So that's, how can you be your best self? How can I can help you to overcome your obstacles? And I'm just going back to the triangle from a few slides ago. Yeah, we're probably going to shift some performance for sure for you, learning, and deepen your fulfillment or satisfaction. I mean, those are some possible reasons why you want to get a coach, but I just wanted to be, just kind of want to put that out there, because it is very results oriented. It's change oriented. Individuals, once they've gone through coaching, really get a sense of themselves being different and operating in a different way as well. So I'll pause. Promise this is all the talking I'll do. So I'm going to go forward and give you a chance here. So how can you be coach-like? For those of you that are very familiar with being coach-like, one of the key elements, core elements, is deep listening. And if this is all you take away from today's session, is that, maybe I could shift my listening up a notch or two or deepen it, that is probably enough. What we found with clients, just listening creates a sense of being heard, a sense of a strength and a sense of fulfillment just of being heard. So deep listening is a key piece. Powerful questioning, and I'll talk more about what powerful questioning is, but you can't do it unless you've listened. Most of us listen, pretend to listen. Like I love this little animal here with the really big ears. We we tend to listen, pretend we listen, but are we listening? Often we're thinking about, what am I going to say next? What's the question I want to ask? Or, or whatever else is going on. So how to have powerful questions from deep listening. And finally, acknowledgement, which is a little bit different than praise. But again, it's all about, how can I notice because the strength in you? How can I support the success you've had to help you to move forward in the thing that you want now? So, having said that, I would like to have a volunteer, and this is to help us practice a little bit of deep listening. And I would be really grateful if there would be a volunteer who's willing to talk for 2 minutes about anything that matters to you. It could be the brilliant meal you had last evening. It could be a lot of people are baking bread these days. Maybe it's the first loaf of bread you baked, whatever it is, or maybe it's something important. But if you're willing to talk just for 2 minutes straight about something, and what we will do is we'll just deep listen. We'll listen, and I'll let you know when the 2 minutes is up. Is there anybody who's willing to volunteer to just share something for 2 minutes so we could practice deep listening? Right on, right on. So just being really mindful that when we listen with part of ourselves. And what are we? We are meaning-making humans who fill in the blanks too. Say, wow, okay, I really see somebody who's courageous, which she is, and I fill in the blanks. So I really invite you to recognize what part was actually said and what part did I add to it to make it a fuller story for myself, right? And that's part of the challenge. So as a coach, when I'm listening intently. I listen to what actually the words are, but I also am aware of the things that I'm making up about it. Not that they're right or wrong, but I'm making them up. So what do I need to do? What do you think I do in order to make sure that my listening was clean? What do I do?
Do you make
Anna?
ask questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the key areas in listening is don't assume. Don't assume, because you've got that side that's factual and that side that's meaning making. And we're going to make it up and put it into a nice story. Always, always be sure that you've really listened to the person. And then if you're not sure or you've made up an interpretation, ask the question. Here's what I heard. I heard that, there was a sense of betrayal, right? Or I heard, I really heard in your story that the true, authentic Melanie is wanting to come out. Did I get that correctly? I know I made that up because she didn't actually use the word authentic, did she? But just by her being willing to come out to talk about her situation in this class, wow, doesn't that speak of authenticity and courage, right? Yeah. So I really invite you to listen cleanly. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and ask you. Now imagine that somebody that wants to work, she said, oh, I'd like you to be my coach. I'd like to work with you. And you've just heard this story she's just told you about this. I'm kind of dipping into powerful questions. What question might you want to ask? You've agreed to kind of work together. You've just heard this story. What question would you like to ask? And I'd like you to listen now and really get a sense of what particular question or questions you really would like to answer. Okay? Great. Awesome. Great. So thank you. So I did want to have a sense of which ones appeal to you. And as a coach, and as even if you're not a coach, you just want to be more coach-like in how you behave with others, with your team, with your family. Sometimes I often get the comment, let me, figure out the most beautiful question that's going to create a miracle. Well, that's actually not that, that's the miracle question is often elusive. So what I'm going to say is sometimes you ask a question, and we heard a couple of questions that appeal to Melanie right now to explore further, which is great. But sometimes we ask a question. Have you ever had that? You've asked the question, and in your mind, it is the most brilliant question. And you have the person look at you and say, what do you mean? What do you mean, right? And then you're thinking, oh no, I haven't listened. I'm going down the wrong track. Our inner critic shows up. We tell ourselves all kinds of stories. So I just want to say, there were a couple, all questions were good. Melanie chose a couple. And if I notice that I've asked a question and there's either one of two things, the person looks at me and says, what do you mean? Or I'm not sure I understand you. I know that I need to ask a different question. That's it. So I really invite you to really make sure that your questions are powerful in the sense that they relate to the person in front of you versus you trying to fill your knowledge gap around their situation. And the second piece is, if the question doesn't land, let it go. Let it go and say, okay, I get the sense that question didn't land. What I will often, I'd say something like, what I wanted to ask was this. How does that land for you? Or I may say something like, is there a question that you're actually asking yourself right now around this, right? So, and that might be helpful to understand where your client's at. So I just want to share that for those of you and I hear that there are coaches on this call and coach-like people who really understand the concept, really worry less about the greatest question, worry more about, how does this question relate directly to the person that I'm speaking with? And am I okay if it's not the right question? What else can I ask? So, so just hold that space for yourself and for your client. And one of the spaces that I know you hold very well, likely, given the caliber of questions I just heard, was the space of silence. It's a wonderful space to hold. It's a great opportunity for your client to think, to be, for you to be as well, and to recognize that silence underneath there's something that is of value. So just being okay with silence as either the next question comes through for you or for your client is really helpful. I'm noticing our time, but I do want to acknowledge. And acknowledgement, I've got coaches on the call here. I recognize that. What am I talking about when I say acknowledgement? Like what does that mean to you? When I say acknowledgement's an important way to forward the action. Anybody? Thanks. And just notice that individuals on this call picked this up in just the last 20 minutes. That's what's coming through you. So I do want to acknowledge that as well, right? So thank you again, and thank you everyone for participating. But if there was, let's say as a leader or manager, if you want to tune up on your connectivity, your ability to connect with others, listening, asking questions from the listening, and noticing, what am I noticing in terms of a strength in this person, which is acknowledgement, is the root of that. If you are already a coach and you're saying, well, I haven't coached in a while and I want to, tune up on my skills, those are the three. Just, if you remember that slide with the really big ears, if I can just listen cleanly, if I can just know what the person is saying, know what I've made up, and really show the person that I've heard them, that in and of itself will create that connection and begin that relationship that's so important.